Hello and welcome to another edition of Penistone Talks, the programme that gets local people, puts them on a pedestal and finds out a little bit more about their life story and their achievements. My guest today is an artist, a sculptor and a designer. He's also born and bred in Barnsley. Let's say a very warm welcome to Graham Ibbeson. Graham, welcome.
Hi, Steve.
I introduced you as an artist and a sculptor, but which came first?
Basically, drawing at school. You know, I won an award at Colour Secondary Modern, and then immediately went into the NCB as apprentice electrician. Didn't mean anything. I didn't even know the Barnsley Art School existed. But after a year, I applied for Barnsley Art School, and I like the idea of being an art student rather than being an artist.
And do you have like a natural flair to be an artist? Because it's, for people that don't have that flair, and I'm talking about myself now, it's very difficult to draw, but I mean, those that are artists, it's very easy, isn't it? It just comes natural.
It's hard work, actually.
Is it?
It really is, and I think I'm lucky that I love the job I'm in, and I've made some sculptures of my heroes, my comedy heroes. However, it's a blessing and a curse, because you have to push yourself. The biggest critic you have is yourself, and so like I say, it's a blessing and a curse. It's always with you, like every day, you know, like day in, day out.
Yeah.
So you can't. You're always living above the shop.
Yeah.
There's no way of getting away from it.
I mentioned you were born and bred in Barnsley, Cudworth and Shafton.
Yeah.
Until your late teens, when you left Yorkshire for college and you went to Leicester Polytechnic and Trent Polytechnic in Nottingham. I mean, for you, were you always destined to do something in art?
No, I mean, right. I went to art school in the late '60s. You know, pop art and art. You know, whatever. You know, pop movement. And I wanted to be like John Lennon. I only went to art school because I wanted to pull the young girls. You know, like to say, oh, I'm at art school and look a bit different. And after a year, I did pull a girl. But she was from Derbyshire, and I was married when I was 17. So
to the girl from Derbyshire?
The girl from Derbyshire, who I incidentally met at Mablethorpe in a cafe while I was doing the season when I was 16. So basically I left home when I was 16, married when I was 17, a father at just 18, and you know, like, took the family on the college, my college adventure, my art school adventure with me.
That must have been quite a challenge then.
Well, it's been a challenge. Well, it's been a uphill struggle for kind of years and years, because I went through the college system with 2 children, you know, and a wife who was, you know, stay-at-home wife. So I had to kind of find the money to keep the Ibbeson ship afloat.
Yeah. In the 70s, you got a place at the Royal Art College, didn't you? I mean, for you as an individual, was that classed as a major achievement?
Well, I applied to get. Well, the sensible thing was to go into teaching, because I'd done a fine art course. Yeah. Where do you get a job if you've done a fine art course or you're a sculptor? You don't.
Yeah.
You become an artist, a teacher, or you kind of diversify into other things. But I just wanted to produce sculpture and art. So I applied for teacher training, and they were really truthful. Why do you want to be a teacher? They said. And I said, to subsidise my own work. So I was the only one in our group that never got in teacher training. And then a professor of the Royal College came painting, the painter professor, Peter De Franchi, came to see the exhibition at the Trent Polytechnic when I had my BA show there, and he advised me to apply for ceramics if I wanted to get in the Royal College, not the sculpture school, because no figurative sculptors were there. So I applied for ceramics. I never stopped in London overnight, went down at Royal College.
Really?
I was interviewed by Edoardo Palazzi, who's a famous sculptor, was a famous sculptor, and one of my heroes. And he accepted me on this ceramic course, me not ever done any, I hadn't done any ceramics. And there I was at the top art school in the country doing ceramics. And I hated it.
But you must have done quite well though, because whilst you were still a student, you got 2 commissions, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I was in ceramics for 3 weeks, and I'd taken the family down there, so my wife Carol and the 2 children. And I walked past the Royal College sculpture school every day, and that's really where I wanted to be. So I went in there, and I managed to persuade the professor to give me a space to work, and eventually I got a transfer there after a couple of months. So I was in the space I wanted to be. So I started making sculpture and enjoyed 3 years in the sculpture school. So I go in the Royal College, the front door by the ceramics, but the back, it was really the back door to get to the sculpture school. I'm not that devious usually, but it was a risk, because if I hadn't have just walked in off the street, we were ready to come back to Barnsley. And so it's a risk that paid off. And yeah, I got in with a gallery while I was a student, and I was showing and selling in a gallery. And I did a couple of commissions, one for the London Symphony Orchestra while I was there.
And you also got an award from Two Swords as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I got a award for the figurative art. Bearing in mind I was the only figurative sculptor at the sculpture school.
Yeah.
So.
And how would you describe your art? Because from an outsider looking in, and I don't profess to be an expert in art at all, but I've looked at your work, and it's almost, and this is not to offend you, but I see it as being almost comedic in that it's, if
what are you saying now?
well, it reminds me of the Bamford postcards, the picture postcards. That sort of.
You're spot on, Steve. You are spot on. And I don't take offence at all. In fact, it's exactly the route I tried to get down. Like I use comedy as a tool. Why go around our art exhibition and not enjoy it and smile and titter? Yeah. Because I use humour as a tool. So humour reflects real life, doesn't it? Most jokes are about real life. It's just that my jokes take a couple of months to tell.
Yeah.
But that's what they are. A lot of them, I call them gags, and I've been told off by dealers, the works of art, not gags. But the basis is a gag, but if the multi-layered, so it says something else. One of my pieces is a piece of a Barnsley mother, could be any pet, it could be like father, wheeling a pram up a hill. The bairn's thrown the dummy out of the pram, she's got shopping, she's puffing up the hill, because Barnsley's based on hills. So imagine all the parents that see that and say, yeah, I have been that person. So that's what it's about. It is multi-layered.
And the other thing I've noticed about your work is it's not about landscapes, it's not about building, it's all about people, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I'm part of the Barnsley community. My studio is 10 minutes away from the town hall. Most of the sculptures I've made were in I've had 3 different places in Barnsley, but they've all been within 10 minutes walk of the town hall. So Eric Morecambe were created down the road. I had 30 Vikings at the Jorvik Viking Centre. I did all the Viking figures. And that's a tale, because I based them all on my family and my mates from the pub. So we got Barnsley marauding York. And the sculptures have now ended up in the Viking Museum in Sweden.
Have they really?
Yeah, well, so we've got Barnsley invading, Barnsley Vikings invading Sweden. So
when it comes down to working on a piece, I mean, when you're freshly starting on a piece, what's the process that you follow? Do you sort of wake up one morning with an idea and then work on it, or does it come from an idea from somebody else, or where do they come from?
Well, commissions are different. We commissions they ask you to come up with a specific design solution to what they want. Mm-hmm. With my own work, it comes from any kind of sources. So it's me looking at the community of Barnsley, friends, jokes in pubs, like family, my childhood. I mean, one in particular is I did a piece called Woman Flattens Husband, and it's a life-size sculpture of a woman ironing her husband on an ironing board. She's just going up his backside with a proper iron, all life-size. Now, that came about because I had a lock-in at a local pub, the Wheatsheaf at Town End, and I'm walking home, and me and my mates wobbling up the lane, and I'm saying, "Oh, she's going to flatten me when I go in." And as I walk up, this idea occurs about a woman flying a bloke on an ironing board. Now, I had this ironing board in the corner of the studio that Carol had bought 5 years previously, this wooden ironing board, antique one. And I kept on looking at it, how can I use it? And the next day I started making this life-size, two figures.
And talk about the process, because I mentioned before we started the interview that I've watched some of your other interviews on YouTube. The process from the thought process to actually the finished article, what is that process? Because it looks like fascinating to me.
Well, you can't make sculpture in a bedroom. That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, what I do is I work it out, the design, really basic, really rough.
Is that a sketch?
Just a sketch in a sketchbook, so the sketchbook is like a diary. Yeah. What I did when I go in, it's still a bit drunk, worse for wear. Yeah. I actually wrote Woman Flattens Husband in this sketchbook, and then went to bed, forgot all about it until, I remember now. Yeah. And so there's that, but then I've got to figure out the engineering of it. So how the figure, big overweight woman, Bamford postcards, a little bloke with a flat cap, wrong way around, drunk, red nose, all Bamford. How that's going to work with the ironing board. So I work at that, all the engineering. And then I make a frame work, like matchstick man, matchstick woman, bulk it all out, put the clay on. So I've got to figure out how the clay is going to stand up, because it will not stand up on its own. So
and is it life size from the start, or do you do a smaller version and then do a life size?
Well, the smaller versions are called maquettes. Basically the scale models, sketch models in 3D. I usually do them for clients if I'm doing a commission, but with my own work I'll go straight into it.
Oh dear.
But like everything else, what's in your mind's eye then is never how it looks in reality. Mm-hmm. So things change. I mean, with the Woman Flattens Husband, I decided that one leg would be flattened already going over, and I'd actually flattened his watch and a bottle of Guinness that's on the floor where he's stretching out. Yeah. So it's them gags I didn't think about, and them little extras, until I was making it, and you just tweak it a bit.
And these works that you do and you complete, are they for your own self-gratification, or do they go up for sale, and do you sell them?
Well, you've got to live. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, I've shown galleries all my life. Yeah. Some of them, and somebody said that the thing I'm making my own family, and it's true. that's who I am. I see them as part of the family.
Yeah.
And it's ironic that a life-size bronze takes about 9 months to create from start to finish. That's when the money's there. So, yeah, I mean, they go on sale in galleries, but I make them because I'm compelled to make them. You know, so I don't work towards the money hoping they're going to sell in a gallery. Well, I do hope they're selling in a gallery, but I don't work towards a client with my own work.
Yeah.
Obviously, those are the commissioned work.
Yeah.
And originally, I started doing commissions to subsidise my own work. And then things started going on a bit of a roll. You know, when I did Eric Morecambe and the Queen unveiled it, like every time a celebrity died, I got a phone call.
And I wanted to talk to you about Eric Morecambe because that was unveiled in 1999, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
But he'd already passed by then. I mean,
15 years previously.
But the realism is something that gets me. When you look at his facial expression, it's not like you can get him into the studio and do a cast of his face. So how do you get that realism? I mean, it can't all just be through the work of a spatula, surely.
Well, it is, and I loved Eric. I never met him, but I loved Eric on TV.
Yeah.
You know, Eric, well, both of them. You know, Morecambe and Wise. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really a sculptor. Well, a portrait sculptor. And in a way, you know, it's the spirit of Eric that's there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an exact portrait. It works as Eric, and the Morecambe, as I said before, you know, it took us 6 years to get the money, and in the first year, Lancaster City Council earned £1 million extra in car parking fees through people visiting Eric.
Really?
Not that they loved the sculpture, but they loved Eric Morecambe, and it kind of provoked a memory. And they laugh and they dance around the sculpture doing the sunshine dance.
So one of the things that fascinates me, and I have referred to it already, but the detail in the features that you've got, the face, the stance, the realism of the piece. I mean, that must come through practice. And when you're commissioned to do something like that, do you just present the first thing that you do, or do you have multiple attempts at it?
I have multiple attempts, but I've got a vision. And the worst thing that can happen is when, and it has happened, recently and a bit further back, where you've got somebody over your shoulder who knew that person saying, no, it's this way, it's that way. And it goes round in one big circle. And what I think, and I'm consider not perfect, but as best I can do, gets changed. So the thing becomes an imperfect piece, and I'm almost embarrassed about that. Rather than, I should have put down the spatula and say, sod you, I think this is right. Why do you employ somebody to do it and you don't trust their judgment on it?
But that can only be an issue if you've got somebody looking over your shoulder, because as you said before, if you've got something in your mind's eye of how you want it to be created and how you want it to look, if it doesn't come out looking like that, there's only you that knows that, isn't there? Everybody else would just accept it as it is, surely.
The thing is, when you're doing that, celebrities who's been on the box every, like Eric Morecambe, who's, like, you get that wrong, people know you've got it wrong. But so, whose vision do you do? Do I do your vision, or Joan Bartholomew, Eric's widow's vision of him, which is, I mean, Joan, this is a classic. Joan Bartholomew, lovely woman, said Eric never had a turned-up nose. And I'm thinking, yes, he did. He's not a Greek god. Yeah, he did. And there were one thing, there's several sculptures, and there's, times people have said, could you change this, change that? They've gone, and I thought, well, sod off, I'm not changing it, it's right. And they've come back and said, oh, it looks perfect now.
And you've not done anything. And at what stage do they are they not able to make any changes? Because
Oh,
it goes through different stages, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's like clay and then, is it fiberglass and then bronzed?
Yeah, that's mostly. I mean, with the Eric one, we had to cut it down. You know, like, usually I model it in clay, then it's moulded. But before it's moulded, it's got to be okay. There's no changes after it's moulded, because they're taking basically an imprint of what I've done. So that is the cut-off point. You know, like, I've had pieces in clay for 2 years where I've had to keep on going out every other day and spraying it, wrapping it up again, spraying it.
Yeah.
But with the Eric Morecambe, we did it directly off the clay. And there were a couple of reasons because of that. Because believe it or not, it was 2 weeks before Christmas. No, about 2 weeks before Christmas, I got the go-ahead. You know, somebody famous is coming, really important, is going to coming to Lancaster in this July. Could you do the Eric Morecambe for us by then? I said, who's this person? I was told it was the Queen Elizabeth II and Majesty. And the money suddenly appeared for this sculpture. I've been trying to raise the money for 6 years for Eric. But in between them, that week and Christmas, my wife had a brain hemorrhage and had to have brain surgery. So I got the best lift of my career and the worst personal time it could have been in my life. You know, as Carol would be 50 then, and so I had to kind of look after my son, who was about 13, nurse my wife because she survived the op, come out of hospital, and make a comedy figure. So
Tough.
It was tough, then, 1999,
You've almost become a household name, haven't you, for the landmark figures that you've produced up and down the country over the years. We've got Dickie Bird, Laurel and Hardy, Morecambe and Wise, as you mentioned. Well, you did Eric Morecambe, then you did Morecambe and Wise.
Yeah.
Victoria Wood, Les Dawson, Don Revy, to name but a few. The most recent one, Billy Casper, that you unveiled in Barnsley. I mean, that is your local town. It must have meant a lot to you to be able to do that in Barnsley.
I mean, I did the Oates Memorial in Barnsley, and that's, you know, it's 150 years, well, just over 150 years ago now, there were 360 odd miners killed in the biggest mining disaster in England. And it was never kind of, there's an Oates Memorial to the rescuers in Barnsley, but not to the miners that got killed. So, and I had an uncle there, great uncle from way back who died in that. And I've got 150 years of mining history in Barnsley. So that was important to me. And after that, I said I wasn't going to do any more sculpture, commission that way. And then the dandled Billy Casper. But part of that is that I said, right, I'll do this for expenses only. I don't want an artist fee. What we'll do is, that's how I want to play it. And I enjoyed making that. I just said, look, I'm going to make it up anyway, whether we get the money or not. So I did it full size, and then we 3D scanned it, 3D printed it, did little bronzes and resins. We made the money to make the big piece then into bronze. Simple.
I was going to ask you why it took so long, because Billy Casper's from Kes, of course.
Yeah.
Which was a late 60s, early 70s film, was it?
So I think it was, it was probably about 67, 69.
So it's taken a long time then, and probably needs a lad from Barnsley to decide to do something like that.
Well, it wasn't me, it was somebody called Ronnie Steele, who was Barry Hines, one of Barry Hines' students, who started the group, and I was part of it, so was Millie Johnson. And we raised the money through selling these small figures we made 45 grand.
Wow.
And we sold 5 to Hollywood, believe it or not, yeah. So it just shows you with the Ken Loach thing, and Ken Loach unveiled it, and Di Bradley. So it just shows you the impact of the film.
Yeah.
You know, this little Barnsley deprived lad from a council house estate, very similar to where I was brought up, yeah.
From the public sculptures that you've done then, which would you say was your favourite and the one that you're most proud of?
I don't know.
Are they not as personal for you as the works, the comedic ones that you do for yourself? Do those mean more?
No, they don't. Those are my heroes,
Yeah.
right? My personal heroes.
Yeah.
But like the mining one, you know, the one I've just mentioned, the Oaks, and I've got Scales of Justice outside the Middlesbrough Law Courts, which combined my fine artwork with kind of a classical figure. There's a woman there, which is a portrait of my wife.
All right.
Yeah, she's several Vikings. She's a fair maid of Perth.
And does she mind being a Viking?
But she minded posing for Eric Morecambe. Carol who were doing that, and just to see how the coat would go.
Yeah.
And she was also Benny Hill. She was going like this. So there's all that. So there's 2 kids on the Scales of Justice. So you've got a classical figure, which is a portrait of my wife, and basically 2 Dandy and Beano kids trying to knock hell out of each other. And she's just holding them apart. So things work at different levels. I'm not saying I'm proud of anything. I'm just honoured, really, to be able to be given the opportunity with that. That was my own work. I was asked to actually come up with something for the law courts.
Yeah.
So that's a piece I would have made anyway.
I thought that was a powerful piece because it's better than putting the scales there, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
having the 2 children there was quite, again, comedic, but
Yeah.
it's very good.
Yeah, it's well, I think it works. I mean, but I recently, we unveiled Billy Casper, the Kes sculpture, in November of last year. And then I made the COVID memorial for Barnsley, which is 7 life-size figures. The tallest figure is 7 foot, so they're all above life size. And it's a monument to the key workers that have helped Barnsley and the community through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now with that, I did that because I wanted to, but I was recovering from a serious operation. I couldn't even lift a bag of clay. So I worked with a foundry in Oxfordshire that I use. And so we were doing it a lot remotely, and I was going down and doing the detail. They were scaling the majority of the figures up, and I was doing the detail on them because I physically couldn't handle it. And within 9 months, like I said before, it takes 9 months to do one figure. We did 7 over life-size figures in 9 months, and it was unveiled in November of last year.
And when you're working on a life-size figure, is that the only thing you can work on, or can you do other things around?
I think when I'm working on a commission, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, with that, because I was working a lot remotely, I was drawing.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't lift a bag of clay up,
Yeah,
I started doing these big charcoal drawings, which is a bit like sculpture, because you're working with black and white.
Yeah.
You're working with, you're getting dirty because it's charcoal, it's smudged. Look like I've been down a coal mine half a day, half a time, you know, like black streaks and that. And I enjoyed doing that because it was instant. So I got this one of the biggest commissions I've done in my life. We're doing it remotely, and I'm going up and down there. But I could stand back from that. Once I was back in Barnsley, we had video calls and that. But I was being created by drawing, and that helped me.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got an exhibition of drawing. It was on the 16th of July of 30 big charcoals I've done.
So other than doing the sculptures, you're still doing the artist work as well?
Yeah, I'm making small sculpture now. You know, it's just, it's like based on the Wild West Yorkshire, really.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like how kids go around in a kind of council house estate. You know, got a girl with a S-belt and a feather, you know, because I was always the Lone Ranger in our house. And my dad used to call my sister Little Running Nose, you know, the Indian squaw. So I just like the idea of this, these kids mimicking something in the Wild West America on a council house estate in Cuddiff. You know, so,
Yeah.
and it's a gag, and everybody who sees it, even though they're dressed in 1950s, you know, like long shorts and whatever, people recognise it. They recognise their childhood.
When you come up with an idea like that, do you run it past anybody else to see if they find it as humorous as you do?
Well, always I drag Carol in. I mean, we, like I said, we were Burns when we got married,
Yeah.
and we've been married 53 years.
Wow.
And I look at the work, and if I come in a room and it makes me smile, and I'm on a winner. If somebody goes in a room and it all makes them laugh,
Even
then
better.
I've hit the
Hit
jackpot.
Yeah.
And I dragged Carol in, and she laughed, and then the kids,
Yeah.
you know, and the grandkids sometimes. And I don't want too many people to see it.
Well, you end up with too many cooks spoiling the broth then, don't you? And too many comments.
Well, I've got one, you know, my eldest granddaughter. She's a bugger, yeah. She'll start criticising it, but she's right. The thing is, she's right. What about this? What about that?
Yeah.
So it's good, yeah, and it's that interaction. And also, I'm literally putting myself on a pedestal, aren't I, through my work.
Yeah.
So I'm used to that criticism, because if you don't get it, it's not healthy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You mentioned earlier the Benny Hill commission that you did, and I read somewhere that it's the only one that you've done that never actually went to bronze. But then I've seen somewhere where it looked as though it had been bronze. So what was the story with that?
I mean, the story with that is I was approached by Gary Bushell, you know, the TV pundit, and Comic Heritage. And I've worked with Comic Heritage to try to raise money for the Eric Morecambe and several other projects to do Benny Hill for Southampton. Now, they raised enough money for me to go ahead, model it up, and get it moulded. And from that mould, I personally made a fiberglass cast and kept that. But, like I said, Benny Hill was one of the greatest TV comedians of his time. But times have changed. It's seen as sexist, not PC. But that's it, of his time.
Yeah.
He's not of his time anymore.
Yeah.
That doesn't make him not a good, brilliant entertainer and comedian.
Yeah.
It's a bit smutty and all it is, but his wordplay is absolutely
But he has his place in history, doesn't he?
He certainly does. And people see him and he's this bumbling Captain Scuttle, you know, like, I got Carol to, she had a double-breasted coat, and I said, just button it up the wrong way, you know, wrong buttons, and do that, and I'll photograph you all the way around. She said, you ever show them photographs to anybody? Showed them the kids there. But that I very much doubt that will ever be in bronze. It's
So
a
where is it
shame.
now?
I tell you what, it's in Barnsley Town Centre. I've got an exhibition in the Glassworks. We've literally taken the Cooper Art Gallery down into town, and I've got 9 over life-size bronzes in there. That's where it is now. And it actually says, you know, with the history of Benny Hill and why it's not cast into bronze. But there's also Ken Dodd. And I modelled Ken Dodd during lockdown. I've been putting it off, And
Just for yourself?
no, I was asked by the Friends of the Grand Theatre in Blackpool if I'd do a portrait of Ken Dodd. And then I became ill, and I'm still recovering from that. But during lockdown, I was a bit bored. So even though I was doing this big COVID commission, I just said, oh yeah, I just fancy doing Ken Dodd, because he was the last of that TV, the TV comedians basically, that moved from music hall into variety theatre and then onto TV. And it's a great live act. And he did unveil my Laurel.
Well, I was going to say, he unveiled that, yeah.
I mean,
you'd have to book a week for that, wouldn't you? Because you can't get him off stage once he's on, can you? Or you couldn't.
I know, it's great. But I mean, the thing is, that at the unveiling, and this was kind of a bit, I just thought this was a bit odd. He says, and Graham's eyeing me up for his next sculpture. But bearing in mind, I think he only said that because most of the comedians, well, all the comedians I've done are not around and weren't around when I'm did memorials to them.
So they were all done through photographs then, were they?
Yeah, every single one. And video now and TV footage. But with the Ken Dodd, they wanted a portrait ad. I said, yeah, no problem. I said, but I've stopped doing commissions. As long as you pay for the cast, I'll do it. Yeah. But I don't want a fee. So, I tell a lie. I said I want a weekend in Blackpool.
Right. Yeah.
A good hotel. But then they added the tittling stick. Can we have a tittling stick? I said, well, you can't just put a tittling stick there. You've got to put a hand there. And I said, right, that's okay. So it's like half a figure. And then, could we have Dickie Mint? One of the Diddy Mint. Yeah. So this thing became half a life-size figure.
It becomes a full story, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, they came to view it just when we were coming out of lockdown. We still got restrictions. So Lady Anne Dodd came down from Notty Ash with her assistant, and 4 of the people, friends of the Grand Theatre came. And we had a great afternoon. Carol had put on a buffet outside on the drive. We kept, COVID social distance. Yeah. One at a time in the studio until they started washing the pots and walking around the house like little school children. And but the thing about it is that Lady Anne Dodd, well, tears in her eyes, and I thought, I really know I've cracked it this time. But in a way, I really enjoyed doing it because there wasn't any pressure, and I was still modelling one of my heroes.
It's a wonderful story. So it's 2022 now. You mentioned you've got the exhibition at the Glassworks in Barnsley, and that's on until the back end of July, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the back end of July, and so there's 8 figures there. We've got the original figures I took down to the foundry. So we've got Laurel and Hardy, Eric Morecambe, Benny Hill, Scales of Justice, the Uphill Struggle. There's a couple of my own pieces in there, and there's a portrait of Carol as the Coal Queen, which I quite like. That's done in 1984, and I sold a version of that in New York, but that was the redundant steel ferry when all the steelworks were closing down in the 80s. So yeah, I'm pleased with it, and we've had good attendance so far, and that overlaps with my exhibition that opens on the 16th of July of my drawings at the Cooper Art Gallery.
So is that the future then for Graham Ibbeson now, to just do exhibitions, or do you think you'll carry on doing more work?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just keep on producing work until I drop.
That you want to do?
Yeah, that I want to do. I'm not saying I won't do commissions, but I'll only scale my own work up, so to say. So somebody says they want the uphill struggle, the one with a pram, scale 20 foot high, wheeling it halfway up a mountain. I said, yeah, that sounds like a good project to me. And a big gag
And there's one where there's a lady lying on top of a ladder, fly. I think she's flying, is she? Which one was that one?
Well, I've done a lot of flying figures. I mean, the last bus home from the pub, called the Granthorpe Flyer, from Barnsley, that took me to Shafton and Cudder. I think we called the Granthorpe Flyer because it ended up in Granthorpe. So that stuck in my mind. So it's a 1950s kid, so it became a 50s woman, little, girls as well as lads, trying to escape the community they're in. The cardboard wings and stuff like rockets on the back.
Wonderful. It's been a great life story for you. I mean, and long may it continue. But for now, Graham Ibbeson, thank you for your time. It's been nice meeting you.
Thank you, Steve. Nice talking. Thanks.